So I've got 8 metal bootlegs to go through this time, all of which live shows. So stick around for record details, needle drops, sound ratings, and all of that. First up is Black Sabbath with Never Say Die Tour, released by Rock Brigade Records out of Japan in 2021. Not to be confused with the label in Brazil of the same name. Rock Brigade is a fairly known bootleg company. They have classic concerts from Motley Crue, Van Halen, Motorhead, Slayer, Rat, and others. This particular show is recorded at the Selin Arena in Fresno, California on September 22nd, 1978. This is the last 70s tour with Ozzy Osbourne, of course, which might have been part of the draw for me. Also, Van Halen was the opening act for this show. So only 2 songs from Never Say Die here, the title track as well as Shockwave. The band is relying on their back catalog a little bit more here with 4 tracks from Paranoid, but only 2 from their previous record, Technical Ecstasy. Also, this is the entire concert, which includes their encore song, Paranoid. Of course, you'll get the standard Ozzy banter about getting high, as well as the general crowd riling stuff. And you can hear the audience here on this one, especially between tracks, so that's definitely a plus. Also, side C is where the isolated guitar and isolated drum solos are. In fact, they collectively take up about 90% of side C, so if you're not a fan of those, feel free to skip them. Anyways, let's hear a track from this boot. This is Snowblind. Vinyl on this one is 2 LP gold. The lovely Rock Brigade Godzilla there for you. Also comes with a poster. There you go, right there. And as well, it comes with an obi strip, as it is from Japan. So there you go there. So the sound is decent on this one. Guitar is a little muffled, but not excessively so. Surprising how well the drums come through, especially the cymbals, but never above the others in terms of levels. And of course, Ozzy sounds like Ozzy, including his occasional vocal missteps, but not too many here, so maybe it's a good night for him. I'd say overall, it's a solid bootleg, as is often the case with Rock Brigade. Also fun to hear some of the post-Sabotage material live, as it doesn't often get as much attention as the other classic era material. It is an audience recording and not from a soundboard, but it is pretty good for what it is. Check it out. Next is Danzig with Soul on Fire, live at the Hollywood Palace, 1989. Released by Mind Control Records in 2019. Mind Control is a European label specializing in FM broadcast recordings. They've also done releases with Slayer, whom we'll discuss later, as well as the Ramones, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Metallica, and others. The show was recorded on July 7th, 1989 at the Palace in Los Angeles, California. In addition to Danzig songs, we also get others from Glenn's previous bands, The Misfits and Sam Hain, which makes a whole lot of sense since the tour is for his first solo album and likely needed some material to pad out the set. Also nice to hear a track that hadn't been released in studio form at this point, which is 777, so nice treat for the audience there. Likewise, getting When Death Had No Name on here is a bit of a bonus as well. If you're looking for the studio version of that track, by the way, it is on the B-side of the Dirty Black Summer single. Never understood why such a great track didn't make it to the album. Killer song. Also, I should mention some obvious errors in the track listing here. Time in Hell is clearly Mother of Mercy. Last Caress is actually Horror Biz. And I'm Evil is really Trouble. Oh, and this is the entire show. No omissions. So let's check out something from the first album. This is Mother. Vinyl is 2 LP Classic Black, limited to 500 copies. One thing I did notice here is that the levels are a little bit peaked, which adds a bit of distortion to the recording. Not to an excessive degree, and it does give the guitar tone more of a buzz to it, but it's certainly there. You can also hear everyone in the mix, though vocals and guitars are up more than the others. Also, you do get some infrequent tape distortion, but it's very infrequent and not enough to really notice all that much. Still, great material to hear live, notably the inclusion of Glenn's past bands and that Lucifuge track. So yeah, glad I bought it. Next up is Metallica with Winnipeg 1986, the Canadian broadcast. It was released in 2018 by Prime Vinyl. Don't know much about this label other than they're from somewhere in Europe. And they've also released boots from Queen, Zeppelin, and Soundgarden, among a few other bands. The show was recorded on December 13th, 1986 during their Damage Incorporated tour, and specifically at the Pantages Playhouse Theatre in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Pretty good track selection here, 4 from Master, 4 from Ride, and 3 from Kill 'Em All, as well as their cover of Am I Evil, of course. Also, Metal Church did play in support of this, which sounds like a killer bill. Speaking of which, this is also the entire concert, including both encores, which is always great. So we get 2 isolated solos here as well, one from Kirk and the other from Jason Newsted, which means we no longer have Cliff at this point. And you can hear the crowd actually digs Jason, so that must have been encouraging for him, given that he was the new guy at the time and he was replacing a cherished member. So let's check out a track from the show. This is For Whom the Bell Tolls. Vinyl here is 2 LP clear. Much the same on the back. Also comes in a gatefold jacket. Funny thing is that the blurb calls this an FM broadcast, though it's also clear that this is an audience recording. Nothing soundboard about it, actually. This does mean that you get to hear the audience to some degree, so we dig that. Overall, a somewhat inconsistent recording, again, clearly audience, with some muffled guitars and tinny drums, but the vocals are reasonably clear. There are better sounding boots, both from Metallica and from this tour, but it's still a good show and worth hearing as a fan of this band's classic era. Next is Iron Maiden with Ed Hunter North American Tour. It was released in 2021 by Heavy Metal Records out of Europe. True to their name, Heavy Metal Records also has done boots by Slayer, Merciful Fate, Cannibal Corpse, Sepultura, and lots of Iron Maiden. The show was recorded on July 18th, 1999 at the Orpheum in Boston, Massachusetts, a venue I've been to exactly once back in 1988 to see Guns N' Roses. Anyways, this tour was interesting as it gave us the return of vocalist Bruce Dickinson, though before the release of his comeback album, Brave New World, and also before Adrian Smith came back. The tour was in support of a greatest hits album of sorts and a related video game, believe it or not, called Ed Hunter. So basically a greatest hits tour with no new music. This is also the entire concert, including the 3-song encore. The supporting band for this tour, or at least this leg of it, was Clutch, which is an interesting choice, I would say. Anyways, let's hear a track. This is 2 Minutes to Midnight. Vinyl on this one is 2LP green, though there is some orange lurking in here. It's kind of hard to see that. Basically, the intention was green, but likely orange was pressed before, and some of that made its way into here. Also comes with an obi strip right there for you lovers of the Japanese. And also a poster. Loving that boots come with posters a lot of times these days. Pretty cool. So sound on this one is a little muffled, especially in the beginning where the vocals are basically impossible to hear. It does straighten itself out after a couple tracks, but still has that muffled and occasionally inconsistent sound. The back jacket here says excellent audience recording, and it's definitely from the audience, but excellent really is pushing it here. There are far clearer sounding Maiden boots out there. However, this is a nice mix of Dickinson and Bailey era tracks, though a little heavier on the former. Overall, it's bootleggy for sure, but decent enough to hear. Next up is ACDC with Veterans Memorial 1978, the Ohio broadcast, released in 2018 by Parachute Recording Company. The label is located in Europe and generally puts out radio broadcasts similar to this one. They handle a number of genres with such artists as Tom Waits, Dream Theater, Rush, and Nirvana, among many others. The show was recorded on September 10th, 1978 at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Columbus, Ohio. The band that supported ACDC on this show was none other than Cheap Trick, so not a bad bill. Of course, the obvious comparison should be made between this and their 1978 official live album, If You Want Blood, You've Got It. Both shows were from the Power Ridge Tour. They were recorded about 4.5 months apart. The live album was from Glasgow in Scotland. The boot is from Ohio. But the setlists are different, although they do share 6 of 10 tracks. The boot has Livewire, Sin City, Dog Eat Dog, and Gone Shootin'. Purportedly, the bootleg is the entire show, including the encore track, Let There Be Rock, so very cool. So let's check out a classic. This is Sin City. Vinyl on this one is 1LP Classic Black. There you go. Also comes in a gatefold jacket with liner notes. Pretty great shot of Angus and the guys right there. So the sound quality here is somewhat hampered by the FM reception of the person recording it, but past that, the mix is pretty decent. Everyone is reasonably clear, especially singer Bon Scott. So yeah, just pretend it's 1978 and you're hearing this out of your transistor radio. Also nice to hear some tracks not on their official live album of the time, so overall, not too bad. Next is Judas Priest with Heading Out to Houston, released in 2022 by Mind Control Records. This is one of at least 2 Judas Priest shows they put out, the other one being from 1982. This show, however, was recorded on June 8th of 1983 at the Convention Center in Houston, Texas on their World Vengeance Tour, obviously in support of their Screaming for Vengeance album. Not sure if this is an entire set, as there is very little info out there about this specific show. Feels like there might be a couple songs missing here, though, notably Victim of Changes, as well as Diamonds and Rust, both of which were played on this tour. Also odd is that the Hellion Electric Eye is at track 4 here, and not at the beginning of the show, as it is with most dates on this tour, leaving you to believe that this might be a reordering of tracks. There are more obvious moments of cutting between tracks, so I suspect that happened with this song as well. Of course, let me know if you know otherwise. Also, there is an isolated drum solo, albeit uncredited, during Desert Plains. Halford does his audience participation over it, though, and it's thankfully short, so no big deal. Another audience participation moment is, of course, during You've Got Another Thing Coming. Like the other one, it moves along pretty quickly as well. Difficult to hear the audience during that bit, and they're more in the background overall, but I don't know. Maybe it's not such a big deal. Who knows? So let's hear the title track from the very album they're touring here. This is Screaming for Vengeance. Vinyl here is 1 LP Classic Black, of course. So, an FM broadcast, and again, a little signal interference, though not all that much. Vocals and guitars are highest in the mix, with muted drums and sometimes barely audible bass, but still very listenable, and a great set list from an incredible tour. Plus, Halford sounds fantastic on this one, and the band does all those live-only bits that make it more of a concert. So, check it out if interested. Next up is Slayer with Praying to Satan, released in 2019 by, again, Mind Control Records. The show was recorded on November 22nd, 1991 at Le Zenith in Paris, France during their Decade of Aggression tour. Opening act was, of all bands, Mindfunk. So, definitely not the entire show, as there are 6 tracks missing, though both encore tracks are here. Missing songs are Captor of Sin, Necrophiliac, Spirit in Black, Skeletons of Society, Hardening of the Arteries, and Aggressive Perfector. Some great tracks there, so they're definitely missed. I don't know why they're not here. Maybe it would have taken a second record, who knows. One thing I am reminded of is that on occasion, Tom has some fairly lame spoken segues in between tracks. I mean, I have 2 words for you, mandatory suicide. I guess that's okay. I don't know, maybe I'm just being picky. Still, it takes nothing away how great this band is, and especially was during this era. Anyways, let's check out a track. This is Born of Fire. Vinyl variant on this one is 1 LP Classic Black. It is limited to 500 copies. So sound quality on this one is passable, though slightly muffled in parts. Vocals, snare drum, and lead guitar are up, but everything else is low in the mix. Also, overall, it does favor the high end. Audience can be heard, though not as much as I would like. Of course, this was recorded on the same tour as their official live album, named after this tour. Decade of Aggression does sound a lot better and has more tracks, so this boot might be more for the dedicated fan or rabid Slayer vinyl collector. That's not bad, though. Next is Possessed with 7 Churches tour, released in 2022 by Rock Brigade. Pretty sure this is the only Possessed show that Rock Brigade has put out as of the summer of 2023 when I'm shooting this, but let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. The show was recorded on January 3rd, 1986 at Balboa Theater in Los Angeles, California, during the tour for their first album, 7 Churches. In fact, the setlist is made up of all but 2 songs from the album, such being Twisted Minds and Fallen Angel. The bill for the show is also pretty amazing. Possessed played that same night with Exodus, Death Angel, Dark Angel, and DRI. Would have definitely killed to see that concert. Anyways, let's hear a sample from the show. This is Pentagram. Vinyl for this one is 1 LP white. Got Godzilla there as well. Front and the back. There you go. Also comes with an OB strip right here. Very nice. And there is a poster in here, I believe. I believe correctly. Some art from the cover. Pretty cool. Other available colors out there are red, gray, or pink. You get what you get, though, with their bootlegs. Anyways, it says this is a soundboard recording, and maybe that was true for the master source, but this sounds like it was taken from a worn-out tape with some slight dropouts and muffling in parts. It is a little noisy overall, but still somewhat listenable. Would have liked a better source for this, though, for sure. Also, playing does get a little sloppy at times, but it's not too distracting. Overall, a mixed bag, but also a classic era for this band, so take that as you will. So for those of you who are into bootlegs, let me know some that you've enjoyed, the ones you own, the ones you've heard from friends, whatever. Also, your favorite sources for picking up these types of records. There are a whole lot of places to get bootlegs. Sometimes you luck out at your local record store, other times you have to find them online. Discogs will rarely, if ever, have them. In fact, they're quite against them, as you might already know. Anyways, let me know all of that and anything else that makes sense in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, do let me know with one of these. Also, a mention in the comments would be kind of cool. Maybe even share my videos with some of your friends. Heck, hit that old subscribe button too, if you haven't already done so. Of course, if you're new to this channel, just so you know, my name is Matt. This is the Accusation Network, where each and every week I do videos on metal vinyl collecting. I also cover the subjects of classic and modern metal in general. Definitely check out all of my playlists. I do over a dozen different shows in and around all these subjects. Anyways, thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next video.